What's the order again?
Russia relations.
Okay.
T-Crad.
Okay.
Terror/Prolet. Greek relations. Turkish Prolet. Actually, NATO, then Turkish Prolet.
Okie dokie.
Know your cards, blah, blah, blah. Everyone ready?
Yep.
I'm not actually
I would like to make a formal press for that card. You'd be surprised how many teams used to do that.
A formal press?
A formal press, whatever the hell that means. I'd like to make a formal press for more solvency evidence.
Okay, is everybody ready?
Yeah.
Alright. First, on Russia relations. They said that their evidence is about relations and not reductions. But what they don't realize is the only way that these relations will improve is if they remove every single TNW in Europe. They've had multiple chances to answer this throughout the debate, and they've refused to. They say we're removing TNWs in Turkey, and that's great. It's an awesome first step, but it is not enough to solve for this Russia relations advantage. So what you're going to see is that all of these impacts that they call for are going to happen anyways, because they have no solvency for them. Our evidence specifically talks about how Russia wants the TNWs outside of all of Europe. It's been dropped throughout the entire round. They have no access to their Russian relations advantage. On to Turkish cred. They say that their evidence is more recent, but what they don't understand is that their evidence doesn't cite Iran specifically proliferating now. They say that Iran has the ability to proliferate now, but nowhere in their evidence does it specifically cite that Iran is proliferating at this moment. Therefore, you must defer to our evidence that says that Iran won't proliferate, even if they have the ability to. This means that their Iranian strikes advantage, or that all of their Iranian strikes impacts go completely away, because Iran will not proliferate. And they say that Israel can strike Iran, and yes, they have the ability to, but their evidence doesn't say that they're going to. It says that there's a 50% chance that they might strike it, but that Israel might strike Iran, but nowhere does it say that they are going to. Just because I have the ability to jump out the window right now doesn't mean that I'm going to, and I have over a 50% chance of doing that. Therefore, their entire Turkish credibility advantage also goes away because there's no impact to it. On to terrorism or prolif. Their evidence, they read our evidence and said that we completely contradict ourselves. But in our evidence, it says that the possibility of terrorists getting their hands on nuclear weapons is not possible. And just because they did a quick Google search and weren't able to find bombing materials, or they weren't able to find bombing graphs, doesn't mean that they aren't there. So therefore, it is completely possible for a terrorist to get their hands on a nuclear weapon or make it themselves without going to Incirlik, which means that their impact of this terrorism is completely inevitable. There is no way that they can solve for it. Although they might solve for this one instance, the impact of nuclear terrorism is one that will not go away post-plan. This means that there is no way that they can solve for all of this advantage. And on to Greek relations. They made a large concession on this advantage. My partner in his 1NR said that this impact should have already happened, and this was conceded in the last speech. What this means is that the impact to Greek relations won't happen because. Or the impact of Greek relations won't happen because it should have already happened. All of their evidence is from before 2000 on how Greece and Turkey relations are bad. This means that all of their impacts should have already happened, as my partner said. Because the impacts have not already happened, you have to assume that they aren't going to happen at all. In addition, they say that our evidence is horrible on the Karzai cards, but our evidence actually is quite good on the issue. It talks specifically about how. The base in Incirlik is insecure. Just to quote it, the loss of Incirlik would be a blow to the military operations by U.S. and NATO, and it is vital to the U.S. Without military assistance, there is little hope of Karzai keeping control. He doesn't have the security forces. Our evidence specifically talks about Incirlik and how important it is to how important it is to Karzai, and extend our impact. The only argument that they made on this is that our impact is horrible. This means that we have yet another impact to global nuclear war. On consult NATO. They say all they say is that the structural issues aren't addressed. But look at our evidence. But you must prefer our evidence because it specifically talks about how Europe is upset, or NATO is upset that we aren't consulting them on things that belong to their countries and things that influence their countries. The TNWs belong to Turkey and NATO. This means that if we remove them without consulting them, it will be a major way to make them angry. If we don't consult them, we will trigger the net benefit of a NATO collapse. All they said is that our evidence doesn't. All they say is that all they did was explain that their plan is key to modernization. But what you must prefer is that their evidence doesn't talk about TNWs. That I'm talking about American TNWs at all, and our TNW and our evidence does. Therefore, you must prefer it. On Turkish prolif. First off, they can see that Turkish prolif acts as a net benefit. They can see the fact that Turkish prolif will happen if NATO isn't consulted. Therefore, the only way to solve for the Turkish prolif disadvantage is to vote for the counterplan. And they said that their authors are on the inside, but this just gives them more of an incentive to lie, so that Turkey isn't perceived as a threat. Ugh, that wasn't good.